I loved reading, period. I remember one time when I was quite young, my mother came to me. I was sitting on the floor reading an encyclopedia, but it was a nice day outside. And I thought, what better thing could I be doing than reading an encyclopedia and the captions under the pictures? And I just loved to read.
Yeah.
And my mom came out and said, "What are you doing in here? Go outside and play." I thought, "Oh my God, I really like to read. Isn't reading a good thing?"
From the Florida Parent Educators Association, home of the largest homeschool convention in America, this is the Not by the Book podcast. I'm your host, FPEA Chairman Suzanne Nunn, and together we will hear from guests who share their journey to who and where they are today. Each one of them at some point left the expected path, ripped the page out of the book that says, "You have to do it like this," and made their own way. I hope these conversations inspire you as much as they do me. Today I have a conversation with Jim Hodges, storyteller and creator of Jim Hodges Audio Books. It's not surprising to find out that Jim loved stories and telling them from a very young age, but you will enjoy learning so much more about the man behind the voice of these wonderful audiobook creations. Let's take a listen.
Honestly, I grew up in a very large family, eight kids.
Oh, great.
I was number 5, so I was the one in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And as my early childhood was fine. It wasn't great. I didn't think. That was just me personally. I didn't seem to really have found a fit within even within the family very much. I was very much kind of off to the side, not an active participant in most of the conversations. I enjoyed being around all of my brothers and sisters, and my parents, but I didn't really. I felt like the odd man out. I remember having buying and putting up a poster in my room of Charlie Brown saying, "When my ship comes in, I'll probably be at the airport." That's kind of how I felt about myself. That I was said the wrong thing, was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I couldn't seem to find my niche.
That's interesting. I was a middle child as well. And I
Yeah.
sometimes feel like that kind of is who you are as the middle kid.
Yeah. It makes me wonder how much it has to do with me, or how much it has to do with just placement.
Yeah, just dynamics, right? Just
Yeah,
dynamics.
because I remember, and it bothered me, and my parents figured it out after a little while.
Mm-hmm.
They would always divide activities between the 4 oldest and the 4 youngest.
Okay.
Well, I was the oldest of the 4 youngest. I felt like I belonged in the other group. And so I felt kind of like odd man out in that circumstance as well, because I wanted to be with the older kids.
Right.
I associated more with them, I guess. And I don't think it helped me very much, except in my larger life. It ultimately was much to my benefit that the second child born after me was severely retarded and had a very advanced case of cerebral palsy. To this day, he's over 60 years old now. He's in a home in Kentucky, being pretty darn well cared for. But a lot of the attention turned towards Philip. I didn't resent it at the time,
Right.
because I knew that it was necessary. But I do think that internally there were feelings of being odd man out.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's really interesting.
everybody else in the family had Philip also. So
Right.
what? I just feel like I responded to it differently. Anyway, it was
That position makes your
yeah,
story in there a little bit different.
it was a little different.
I read in your bio, I believe, that you had started very early when you were maybe like 7 or 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
speaking. Is that accurate?
It is.
How did that happen?
My first recollection of like basically performing was when my second grade teacher asked the class, who would like to read this page from Dick and Jane? Because that was, that those were the readers that you got in the early 60s. It was Dick and Jane. And I knew how to read. I knew what an exclamation point meant. So when I read Run, Dick, Run, I read Run, Dick, Run. And the teacher was really impressed with my characterization of the words and the storytelling that kind of came out. I wasn't just reading Run, Dick, Run, See, Dick, because they were sight words.
Right.
I saw them as telling a story, I guess. And so I was much more animated to the extent that the teacher said, "Oh my gosh, Jimmy, that was great. Would you like to read another page?" And bam, I was hooked. I mean, I was hooked on public, quote unquote, performances by reading out loud in class. And I did that for the rest of my school career. I always volunteered to read out loud because I enjoyed it. And because my second grade teacher told me I did a good job with it.
There you go.
I'm convinced that she
that little bit of encouragement. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's amazing. Well, it's amazing what you will do if you think you're doing it well, right? Sometimes it holds us back a little bit to think, I don't know. But if you really enjoy it, or someone says, you're doing a great job, I think it's an encouragement to keep going.
Absolutely.
Keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a grandfather now, I look for opportunities to praise my grandkids on when they do something and they seem to do it really well, or they tried you just always try to encourage. You need to jerk chains every now and then, but for the most part, you want to be the encourager because I know how much of a difference that made in my life.
Yeah, and it's the little unexpected things. I know you also mentioned that as you grew up and moved into what maybe high school, that you developed an interest in acting, I believe, as well.
I did.
Yeah.
I think, having done all this reading out loud in class, literally from second grade all the way through high school, I didn't really recognize in my head that was a performing art until I got into high school. And then it was like, yeah, I think I'd like to try out for that play, that one act play, and worked on sets and backstage and all that kind of stuff. But the performing part really attracted me a lot. I didn't do a ton of acting in high school. When I got to college, I tried out for every play, one acts, full length, musicals, whatever. And I must admit, and this is not, they say it's not a brag if it's true. Is that right?
That's true. That is true.
Okay. All right. So when I was in high school, I got Best Actor for one play that I was in. When I was in college, I got multiple Best Supporting Actor awards. And when I did community theater after college, and I was an adult and still interested in theater, I got Best Supporting Actor down in Corpus Christi, Texas, where I was in a play called How the Other Half Loves. And
awesome.
And so I was always recognized as doing well in that department. So that kind of fed into my performing aspect of my personality and the things that I was interested in.
Yeah. Again, and that encouragement just kind of pulls you along sometimes. And it is sometimes unexpected. I know for my I have a couple of children who are very involved in theater through the years.
Okay.
And it was interesting to me because the first time that someone suggested to me that my son in particular was going to be a character in a play, I kind of laughed and thought, no, I don't know that he's interested in that. And I saw him perform and I was like totally floored and blown away. I was like, I had no idea. But then I started putting together some of the pieces that in his childhood, his, little young years, he loved dressing up and pretending to be Darth Vader or pretending to be Peter Pan or whatever it was. And I was like, I should have paid more attention because here we go. And I don't know that he would have started acting as young as he did if someone else hadn't brought that to my attention,
Right,
But
right,
now he speaks a lot and he's developed those skills on a stage. Some people will develop them in a, speech and debate kind of
right,
area or whatever. But he's developed that on the stage and theater. And theater is an amazing outlet for people who are storytellers,
right.
who love to share that excitement, and help someone see a story come to life. And I'm sure you experienced that feeling on the
All of that,
stage, right? Yeah.
all of that. And the amazing thing is, the number one fear, if a survey were to be taken today of 1,000 Americans, and they were asked what would be the most frightening thing for you to do, speaking
Mhm.
in front of a group is almost always number one.
Right.
And I feel absolutely nothing. It's like I came to the conclusion a long time ago that to try to help other people to overcome this fear of speaking to a large group. My position is, you never, ever, ever, I don't care how many tens of thousands of people are in there listening to you, you are never, ever speaking to any more than one person at a time.
Hmm.
Because there may be 5,000 people out there, but you're actually speaking to Jane in the second row and Tom in the back, and
Right.
you're speaking to each individual. And so if you see yourself speaking to one person, regardless of how many people are in the room, you
Right.
come across very comfortably, because you're only, how nervous do you get to speak to one person that you run into in
Hmm.
the hallway in a homeschool convention? You don't have any
Right.
problem at all talking to them. Why
That's
would it
right.
be any different if there's 500 people in the room or 5,000 people?
Hmm.
It shouldn't be, and it isn't for me. Before I would perform in theater, I would get a little bit nervous before I got on the stage.
Yeah.
But speaking to a group in a room, like doing a session at a homeschool convention, I just have no fear whatsoever of doing that. Never have.
Yeah. That's what my son used to call good nerves. It gave you the energy.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, 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 yeah. A
so,
little bit of, okay, let's go. And
yeah.
yes, good nerves. That's a great way to put it.
Well, so you found some interest there in college and acting and community theater, but let's like back up a little bit. Your career. What were your projected ideas for a career when you left high school and when you were in college? Or what were you thinking you were going to be doing?
I had no idea. I was a typical, 18,
That's
19,
good. I was
20-year-old
gonna
young
say
man.
typical.
I
Yeah.
had no idea. I had no idea. But I do remember that when I was a young lad, probably seventh and eighth grade time frame, my older brother David was very active in the Boy Scouts, and he had Boys Life magazine came to the house, and I loved
Right.
reading that. And I loved reading, period. I remember one time when I was quite young, my mother came to me. I was sitting on the floor reading an encyclopedia, but it was a nice day outside. And I thought, what better thing could I be doing than reading an encyclopedia and the captions under the pictures? And I just loved to read.
Yeah.
And my mom came out and said, "What are you doing in here? Go outside and play." I thought, "Oh my God, I really like to read. Isn't reading a good thing?" But anyway, um, I'm sorry, I forget the question. Can you remind me of what the
Oh
question is?
yeah, no, we were just kind of talking about what you thought you might do as a
Oh,
career,
oh, oh,
or
oh.
yeah.
So in the back of the Boys Life magazine, there were all of these ads for, work from home, stuffing envelopes, that kind of thing. So just
Oh
the
yeah.
idea of being self-employed had implanted in my brain very, very early in life to me, but I didn't know what that would be.
Mhm.
And even doing all of this public speaking, so after I graduated high school, I took a year off and worked. I went to college for 1 year, uh, did moderately well, but not great. I was never a great student. And then I joined the Navy, And so I
Okay.
ended up doing a 20-year career in the Navy. And while I was in the Navy, I was public speaking.
Mm,
I was doing the voiceover for Navy training films. I was a newscaster on my ship because it was large enough that we had a closed circuit television. So I was a newscaster.
that's
Um,
great.
I would read scripture and sing in church. So I was always kind of performing as just a part of what I was doing with my life. So the
Hmm.
self-employment thing, the excuse me, the experiences that I had in the Navy, the uh, the the kind of safety when I retired from the Navy, that I had a retirement check coming in. Now
Right.
it's time to put together, okay, what do I love to do? I love to read and perform. I want to be self-employed. I want to stay home. How do all those things fit together? And what I came up with was, I'll bet, since I like to talk and people seem to like the sound of my voice, maybe I can get paid for talking.
Mm.
How can I do that? By staying home, recording books. So
Was was there a huge market at that point for recorded
um,
books?
there was certainly a market. I mean, if you went to the library, there would be a pretty decent sized section of books on cassette. And
Hmm.
so when my wife and I went, we were fairly consistently, like very consistently, I should say. We go out once a week. We go out to eat once a week just to have some time alone between the two of us. Even when the kids were younger, we'd get a babysitter. Or, well, one night when I had about a year left in the Navy, my wife and I were at a Cracker Barrel, and she said, basically, what are your plans for after the Navy? What are you thinking of doing? And in my head, I thought she was asking, where's the next paycheck going to come from? That's what I
Right.
thought she was asking. So I told her, hey, you know what? I've been an office administrator for 20 years. I'm really good at, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I'm a great admin guy. I'll be able to find work either on the base right here, Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City, or that's the capital of the state. I can go work for the state. Don't worry, I'll find work. And she
Right.
said, no, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. My question to you was, what would you do if you could do anything you wanted as a job and it was sufficient for our needs?
Hmm.
Well, in that case, I'd record books. She
Okay.
said, wait a minute. We've been married 19 years. I've never heard you mention this before. Where did that idea come from? I said, I don't know. It's just, I'm a guy. These things are just kind of rattle around in the back of your head and you don't really give them a lot of credence. You don't really worry about it too much. They're just kind of there. And
Hmm.
if, you asked, so that's what I would do. And she said, 3 words, let's try that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So the next day
That.
we went to the library, as to follow up on your question, was this a big deal? We grabbed 3 or 4 of these audiobooks off the shelf. We put them in the cassette
Hmm.
player as we were driving around Oklahoma City. And it was like, that guy stinks.
Right.
This guy doesn't know what he's doing. And that guy's good, but I could do better than that. And then I noticed that as people were reading, as we went through the chapters, all of a sudden their voice would get a ton better. And I
Right.
realized they had been recording, 6 or 7 hours one day, and their voice was wearing out, and you didn't really notice it until they got up the
Hmm.
next morning. And so I committed to, I'm only going to record an hour a day, so I don't have that. And
Right.
so the next question was, all right, we know I'm good enough to record books. Who do I record? What do I record?
Right. Right.
And I had always read out loud to the kids. I loved reading out loud to the kids before bed. We would read Hardy Boys mostly. I remember reading Kidnapped to them from Stevenson and, a few other
Mhm.
books. But I noticed that there was a dearth of really good quality material for young men.
Right.
And so I asked my homeschool community, hey, I'm going to start a company of recording books. Does anybody know of a great author that I could record that would
Hmm.
redound to the character development of young men, giving them good godly role models? And everybody was like, oh my gosh, you got to check out the Henty novels. Check out the George
Hinty.
Alfred
Yeah.
Henty novels. So
Of course.
of course. So I bought a couple of them from Ruby Reeves, who was another homeschool mom who was selling the books.
Mm-hmm.
I read a couple of them and I came back to her and I said, Ruby, are they all like this? She said, they're all like that. I said, okay, I have found my guy. And so
Yeah.
during my last year in the Navy, because Monica was on board with all this,
Mm-hmm.
I bought a microphone, I brought software, I bought a new laptop. I got myself ready, and I recorded with Lee in Virginia during my last year in the Navy, and picked
That's
up
a great book. Yeah.
picked up 500 copies of it on cassette
Mm-hmm.
6 days after I retired from the Navy. And then anybody that was selling the books that I could find online, distributors that were selling the books, I got in touch with
Right.
them and I said, can I send you a free copy of my recording? And they were all like, absolutely, sure, go ahead. And
Yeah.
every single company that I sent a free sample to ordered, every single one of them.
That's phenomenal. So
It
you,
really was phenomenal.
yeah. And so you went straight into selling with distributors. Um,
I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell me give me a little bit of your thoughts on homeschooling and reading and how you have an impact with that community by providing such quality books. Because I was a homeschool mom after I spent 13 years teaching in like public and private school.
Okay.
One of the things that really drew me in was the amount of time freed up for me and for my kids to actually read. That was, phenomenal because there's always so many things to do in school and
Right.
homework. And honestly, so many of the classes, even, the books that you use in English and literature classes in high school are excerpts of great books or great
Right.
writing.
Right. Right.
It's not the entire thing. And you may get one complete book you read in a year in that class, right? So
Right.
there was not a lot of encouragement for good reading material.
No.
So,
No.
I think that when I moved into the homeschooling community and saw that, that was one of the most impressive things to me about how I could educate my kids.
Yes.
And, so you were a homeschool parent
Yes.
and had
Yes.
a homeschool community, and you
Yes.
obviously loved stories.
Yes.
So how did you move into that community of
Well,
selling and
most
making your books available?
um but outside of Rainbow Resource and CBD and all the other companies that I was doing the distribution to, I knew that I wanted to um I knew that I wanted to go retail also. I wanted to
Mhm.
sell direct to consumer. And so the best route for that was the homeschool conventions.
Right, right.
So starting in let's see, what year was it? Starting in 2005, and I started in 2000 is when I started.
Okay.
But I didn't do my first homeschool convention that I have a record of anyway. My first one that I have a record of was in 2005. I did 14 conventions in 2005.
Wow.
Uh,
So you really jumped in there.
I jumped in. Yeah, I jumped in with both feet. I just thought, you know what? If I'm gonna um, get an email list, start selling retail, because the profit is higher, obviously, because when you
Mhm.
sell wholesale, you can't sell it to them for the full sale price, then they won't make any money. So my
Right.
goal was always to be the hero. So I would sell to a distributor at a much better discount than anybody else was selling to the distributors.
Mhm.
But I ended up between 2005 and 2023, I guess, I did 274 homeschool conventions. And we're
Wow.
talking Alaska and Hawaii and all over the lower 48. Um,
Mhm.
I lived in Oklahoma, which is kind of centrally located, so I would just drive to all of these places that I could get to in the central US. It didn't make any difference to me if it took 8 or 10 hours to get there. I would
Right.
do that because you want to spread your product and information about what you're doing as far and wide as possible. I think I've done a convention in virtually every state. And I know there's 3 that I didn't do a convention in, but I mean, I would go anywhere and everywhere. Um,
Yeah.
and I've got a great following. I have a very loyal customer base and have had them for some time. I love them. I try to really, really hard to take care of my customers. If I get an email from somebody, I respond in the same day. It's important to be a good, but be a good business to do business with. And so,
That is true. It's very important.
yeah. So if anybody has any problems or issues, I make sure to fix it as quickly as I possibly can to answer any questions that people have. In fact, as an introduction to what I do, if you go to jimhodgesaudioBooks.com, there's 3 blue buttons across about halfway down the page, and one of them is get a free audiobook. And if you will give me your email address, we'll send you a link to Under Drake's Flag, which I think is a really good Henty title.
It is.
It's not real heavy on the history. It's more heavy on the adventure, which is fine. But you travel around the world with Sir Francis Drake on the Golden Hind, and so there's a great geography lesson in there.
Yeah.
And the hero character has all kinds of adventures, and anyway, it's just such a great way to learn history and have a good story. And so if anybody would like to come to the site and get that audiobook for free, and then you'll be on my email list. I'm not not hiding anything. You will be on my email list. But if you like it, then great. Maybe you'll come back and get some more, because I finally realized, after doing all of these conventions, moms kept coming up and saying, I do not have time to be reading out loud to my kids all day. That's what they want me to do. And I said, I never get tired, here, buy a couple of these. And and I can't tell you the number of emails I've gotten from moms saying, my boy is 10 or 12 or 14, and he would listen to you all day, every day, if I would let him. So that's really a great compliment, and very encouraging to me to keep doing what I'm doing, because I love doing it anyway. So everybody.
So how do you choose which book you're going to record now? Because you've made it through a number of those classics.
Yes, I've done classics. I've done children's books. I've done Dave and Nita Jackson's Trailblazer series, 10 of their 40 or some odd books that they've written. Susan Marlowe with her Gold Town Adventures, which is basically Gold Rush, California stories, settings. I've read, I think, a dozen of her books, and the classics. I mean, Robinson Crusoe, Around the World in 80 Days, Mark Twain's Joan of Arc, which is almost 16 hours long and is probably the best book I've ever read. I recorded that as well. So it's turned into a love of literature, a love of reading. How I go about picking what I do next. For the Hentys, I've tried to hit all the different time frames in history that he wrote about.
Right.
And I've got them very covered. There's still a little bit of backfilling to do, but the classic lit department, oh my goodness, that's almost a bottomless pit.
Yes.
of opportunities. So it's basically, what time frame do I want to read another Henty on? For that, for the classics, I started during COVID. My wife and I would leave the house. We'd go sit down by the river here. We live in Annapolis, Maryland, which is on the Chesapeake Bay, and a couple of rivers coming into it. We'd go sit down by the water and just read at night, because you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go to a restaurant or anything. And so I started reading all those classics that I should have read in high school. And as I read them, if I think, that would work for a homeschool market, then I will go ahead and record that too. I think the next one I'm going to do is Black Beauty. Not 100%.
Oh, that'll be great.
Yeah. And I try to hit subject matter that both young men and young girls would enjoy. I've got a lot of girl fans that love the Henty novels too. Don't get me wrong. They're not only for boys, but the girls kind of fall in love with the hero character, and they're thinking, that's the kind of guy I'm looking for. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I was going to say, my daughter enjoyed her share. Yep, that's for sure.
That's great.
Well, I love that. And I think that it's, funny that we can redeem what we lost in our maybe public education as a kid.
Yes, yes,
By being a homeschool parent, right? Can redeem
yes, yes,
you can redeem
yes.
so much. But no, I love the reading of the classics. I love the reading that just really encourages, character building and strong character in
Mhm,
our children,
mhm.
um and having great stories of great heroes and great adventures.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's amazing. It's very encouraging too. And I think that it's so important. I always have loved, because I spend a lot of time on the road. I've loved having the opportunity to use audiobooks.
Yes, yes,
It's kept us going a lot of miles. Um,
absolutely.
so, and I would even encourage, a lot of people think, well, I'm not in the car traveling great distances. We've listened to a lot of books in our 20-minute drive to co-op.
Yep.
And
Uh,
it's little bits and pieces, and sometimes a kid or even a parent can't sit down and read for hours or dive into something for that long without losing some connection to it. But I think that when you give it in small pieces, even young children can really appreciate the story part of what's happening.
Absolutely. And
So,
even very young children, if they're 4 or 5, I had a policy with my kids. Um, for the first couple months, maybe, I would do baby talk with them,
yeah.
but that was in addition to my just talking to them. And I
Hmm.
dropped baby talk very quickly because the human brain develops a knowledge of language even when they have no idea what you're saying because they don't know what words mean because they're three
Right.
months old. But you're still developing those neural pathways by speaking to them calmly and clearly and in complete sentences with emphasis and pause and nuance, and they
Yeah.
eventually it just kind of becomes a part of them too. And so that was something that I did. I don't know how many parents do that, but I don't think I was very typical at having
Right.
made that specific decision. No, I'm not going to talk to you like you're a baby. I'm going to talk to you
Yeah.
like you're a grown-up and you understand every word that I'm saying, right? Of course you
Yeah.
do, and
But I think it's true. You bring that up, and it's a very actually, I think it's an interesting question to consider, or thought to ponder, about how you talk to your children when they're babies. Because I was the same way. I talked to my kids in my voice. I read them stories before I knew they could understand the words. But the
Mhm.
reason in my mind was because I wanted them to feel connected to my voice.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like during the young years when I was reading stories to them and talking to them and not having, it's totally different when you're then dealing with teenagers, but we had a relationship of how we spoke to one another and how we talked.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it really helped the relationship, I think, to develop even more strongly as we were having them grow up in our home,
Mhm.
because the voice is not just a voice that, was a high pitched baby talk or
Right.
talking down to them, or I spoke to them like they were little human beings, which is
They're
what they
human
were.
beings. I
Little
will
people.
I'll tell you, one thing, and it really doesn't have anything to do with comprehension or anything like that, but
Mm-mm.
my wife was pregnant with Shannon when I had to get underway with the Navy. And
Mm-hmm.
um, but she was probably 6 months along. So, I'd been talking to her belly,
Yeah.
talking to Shannon. We didn't know who, we didn't ever find out ahead of time whether it was going to be a boy or a girl. We liked being
Right.
surprised. So I would just talk and talk. Well, the first day I got back from that cruise, Monica had already delivered her and
Mm.
cared for her for a month or so before I got back. And I walked in the house, and my sister-in-law Lena was holding Shannon in her lap, and I just said something to Lena or something to Shannon. I don't even know what I said, and Shannon's head snapped. Woo! I mean, it snapped and looked at me like, I know that voice.
Yeah.
I just thought that was fascinating that
Mm-hmm.
she knew the voice, then it disappeared for a while. And when it came back, she immediately responded to it. And I think it's because of the recognition of my voice. I hope it wasn't because I frightened her or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the power of her voice is strong. I really do believe that, and I believe that it's amazing when we can use it for building relationship, when we use it for storytelling, because everything is stories.
Everything is
Um,
voice. Right.
it is everything. Our whole life is stories. How we learn is built on stories, and I think what we remember and what we embrace is the stories.
The story.
And
Right.
so I think that, it's passion. I mean, the reason we do this podcast is I believe in the power of the story of people's lives, and
Mhm.
want to hear, how did you get to where you are? How did you make those decisions? Because it can impact and influence others and encourage others to do the same, and to step off of, the beaten path and try something different. Your wife
Yeah.
just saying, let's try it. I mean,
Yeah.
how impactful that was. It could
Oh
have
my gosh.
been life changing for
It
you,
was, it was everything. It was everything to me. And the crazy thing was, so we're in a Cracker Barrel, which everybody knows is a very, conservative, friendly, you know,
Right.
that's just their atmosphere. That's their modus operandi. Well, we went out to pay for our meal, and there was an audiobook rack right there.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it was like, oh my gosh, we just started talking about me recording books. I said, what do you got here? And I started looking around, and the lady behind the counter said, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe how many of them we get returned.
Hmm.
I said, what? She said, oh yeah, the parents buy them to listen to on the road, and then they forget that there's kids in the car, and then something comes up in the storyline, they're like, we don't want our kids to hear
Right.
that, and they bring it back and say, no, I'm sorry, this is not for my family. And I
Mm.
thought, wow, even the stuff in Cracker Barrel
Yeah.
gets turned back and gets returned because there's no family friendly audiobooks. And
Hmm.
we had just decided, let's try that. Let's
Let's
start
try it.
investigating. And so we're looking on this rack of audiobooks. It's like, where's the kid stuff? This is a kid-friendly place. This is where you stop when you're on a long road trip. If you want a family-oriented kind of meal, if you don't want to do
Yeah.
McDonald's or Wendy's or something like that, you want to sit down and have a meal, you go to
Hmm.
Cracker Barrel. And even the stuff so it was more encouragement to us. Hey, we can record stuff that's good for the family, that's good for young people, that the parents and the kids can enjoy, and there might be a market for that. Well, yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I am glad you made that decision and that Monica encouraged you,
me too.
because we have benefited from your decision to record audios, and my family has loved it, and I know hundreds of homeschool families and more have enjoyed it. And so I really can appreciate that. I appreciate your work. I appreciate you being committed to continuing it,
Yeah,
because I think it's a powerful place to speak into the lives of people. And we're gonna wrap up here in a minute, but I love to ask this question, and I'm gonna enjoy this probably even more with you because you've read so many books. But I like to ask the question of what phrases or quotes or verses have encouraged you, either when you were young that really stuck with you and made an impact on your life. What words? Or, even now as you're making decisions and grandparenting and continuing to impact lives, what would you share that's been something that has really played a role in impacting your life?
I
Hmm.
think my favorite quote, the most encouraging quote that I've ever heard, was from Winston Churchill, and the closing line was, persistence and determination are omnipotent.
Okay.
So if you're persistent and you are determined, that will overcome just about anything. And
That's great.
I think that's kind of what I was I did have pretty immediate success with people buying the product, but just getting to that point. And I've been doing this for 25 years now. This is my 26th year, technically, of doing Jim Hodges Audio Books. And I keep finding new avenues, new outlets. I'm on all of the major audiobook subscription sites, like virtually every single one of them. I've got my own website. I've got I just keep working at it, no matter what comes up. So we started with cassettes, right? And then everybody wanted regular CDs.
Right.
And I said, well, the cassettes are $35. Would you be willing to pay $65 for it on CD? And they're like, that'd be a little bit much. I said, well, that's what CDs cost. I can't get as much audio on a CD as I can get on a cassette. So I have to get more CDs. And now the packaging is bigger and, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I skipped over that, and then I went straight to MP3 CDs. That way I could fit the whole book on one CD. Well, now I had to tell everybody what MP3 was, how to make that work. And the next step was, well, let's see if I can sell MP3 CDs, I can sell MP3 downloads. Let's do downloads. So we started doing downloads. Hey, a lot of people like this. Let's do a download a month club, because I'd like to have more consistent leveled off income. So I instituted a download a month club. You pay $6.99 every month. I charge your credit card, pay $6.99, but you get a coupon worth $18. That's what an audiobook costs. So for $6.99 a month, you can get an audiobook every month. And I just keep having to be persistent and determined to continue to make this work by rolling with the punches, by doing 274 homeschool conventions, by investing in a website and coming up with all of these new ways of delivering the product. It's daunting. It is
an evolution of sorts.
It's an evolution. And I'm fond of saying is, one of the things that I love about being self-employed is you're constantly challenged to come up with the next X, whatever X is, and to figure out the marketplace and determine how you're still going to be able to make sales, even though this kind of went away and this is the new thing. And the thing that I hate most about being self-employed is you're constantly having to keep up with the marketing and the changing technology. And,
there you go. Keeps you young.
It's challenging, and I enjoy that part of it some, but it's also quite difficult because really, honestly, Suzanne, you know what I want to do? I want to sit at this chair in front of that microphone and just read.
There you go.
I just want to record. I love doing that part. I want to get everybody else doing all of the other stuff. Somebody else to do all the other stuff. Just let me read. And I don't know how close I am to that, but that's my ultimate goal.
Maybe one day.
Right? Maybe one day.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you so much again just for being here. Thank you for sharing with us today your story a little bit more personally. I think that it's amazing. Lots of us have heard your voice sharing other stories, but today gave us a little unique insight into where you came from. And I enjoy that so much. So thank you for being here. Sure.
Well, my pleasure, Suzanne. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you. I really do.
Thanks for listening to the Not by the Book podcast from the Florida Parent Educators Association. To learn more about homeschooling in Florida or to find resources to help you on this amazing journey, visit our website at FPEA.com. If you have any suggestions for future guests, contact me, Suzanne, at notbythebook@fpea.com. Thanks again for listening, and be inspired to live your life not by the book.